I am starting recording now. Hi, friends. Host Eric here, host of Talking to Famous People, and bringer of the light and the truth, the wisdom and the glory. And I'm here with Stuff Doer, and he called me because he wanted to talk about whatevers. And so I was like, all right, we could talk about whatever. And then he started saying some stuff about how I'm a SP rather than SX in a Negro. I'm like, you better hold your horses there, mister. You better start a video because this is sounding
I
like
said,
fighting words. All right, what do you think SP is and SX mean? What do you think those things mean?
okay, so self-preservation. First of all, hi y'all. Hello. The camera is going to be very erratic on my pacer. Self-preservation goes, there's a movie by the Coen brothers where like the hero enters the town and is like he's confronted by like all these niggas are like, damn. For tactical purposes, I have to like swindle you or like position myself above or like be gluttonous with this. Like all these traits that are focused on like, damn, I have to get ahead, you know. Um, and he was like, damn, yeah, like these are people where it's like the worst parts of these traits. And when you look at people who have self-preservation first, there's a remark of groundedness. Like I'm sure everyone can picture in their minds like the Michael Scotts of the world. Michael Scott was a social sexual. So social, he was trying to like, first of all, develop a concrete bond, you know, that being the social tie between him as a manager and his employees as workers, you know. He was trying to be a friend. He was like, damn, a comedian first, like a friend
Okay,
or like a friend
but
first.
listen, I just want to understand
Yeah.
what the specific criterion is. So you gave me one for social, which is wants to establish a concrete bond, right? Something like that. So
Define.
give me the equivalent for the other two.
Okay, so self-preservation is like you want to make sure you have it, the things, the traits, the systems, the routines, almost like the SI like databases on like how to survive. I am a self-preservation blind, and I am terrible with that. I am terrible with self-regulation, monitoring my body, all that shit. Even just like planning ahead, even though I can do it in a pinch if I really have to. Whereas I live next to an ESFJ, self-preservation social
Okay, so
worker.
so
Yep.
what's the criterion for SP?
SP is like you're thinking about, Bear Grylls like isn't just like, damn, I have to go out and do this, like secure and get this thing. It's like he's always thinking about like, I have to make sure that like this aspect of my survival
But
is
what's the
whatever.
criterion that we
Yeah,
use? You gave
I'm
me
trying to tell you.
okay.
I'm trying to tell you. Like Bear Grylls is saying like this area of your survival is important. Like this, like if you have this, it's going to affect the whole of like your body and your survival of like the things that you need. And if you apply that mindset to like everyday life, it's like someone who's like very much aware of like, damn, these people are gonna fuck with me. These people are gonna mess with my emotions this way.
So flexibility.
Yep. I'm sorry.
So flexibility.
A sort of practical mindedness and judiciousness towards like what you need to survive and like the comfortableness of like,
An
yeah.
interested calculus, putting your own interests first.
In a way, yes. Like especially towards the self, like the material self. That's definitely it. Like like sexual first, it's like it's the greatest thing is like getting that like integration between self and other. And it's like you can sort of sacrifice the self. The self is like a sort of construct between, trying to get that fix
Okay,
and
so
then
I got your
yeah.
definitions now, basically. So where did you get these definitions from? Are they of your own construction, and why are they preferable to other definitions?
I I think what I'm saying like is very much in line with like a lot of them. And I think a lot of people have themselves mistyped as like, other things because it's like the self-preservation social, for instance, like some people who are that identify as like sexual first, and that's because like you can have forge in your tritope, or what that means in other terms is like you're gonna try to like uh, feel how you connect with another person, like how your bonds are, what similarities you have.
Okay, but here's the deal. Hold on a
Yes.
second. Listen, I've heard multiple explanations of these so-called instinctual variants.
Right.
And the fact is, I've heard multiple explanations that don't necessarily conflict, but are different from each other distinctly. And for example, I've heard one of them say that SXSPSO basically links to if there was an apocalypse, how would you say, okay, every man for himself? Would you say it's me and you against the world, darling? Or would you say I'm going to try to gain status in this group of survivors or something? That's one way I've heard it explained. Why is that not preferable? So what's wrong with that approach? Like, why is yours preferable to that? That at least is clearer in its criteria.
Okay. It lacks a core focus and sort of like theme, like like really cliche plays. They have like themes and shit. And this is just like, oh damn, but like they may do something or whatever. I'm a social sexual, like House from the TV show House is like a social sexual. But it's like this nigga is like he would go out on his own. Maybe I wouldn't, even though we're the same type. And it's like this explains it concretely. But there are ranges for each type. I know the most about the social sexual because I am a social sexual. Yes, good.
So what's your warrant here as to why it's better? Because you've seen it in people, or is because the thing is, what we need is a mechanism that explains it in a way that isn't like a literary interpretation where multiple ones can all be sort of correct, they're just differently substantiated, but rather like an actual like a cognitive function explanation which is exclusive. Because if it's not that, then it's all just we're all playing just interpretation games with enneagram.
Okay. So like for this the instinctual variance, it's like you're gonna have the first thing is there's gonna be either sin flow. So all the cognitive function are the aspects of self-preservation, social, sexual, blind, whatever. Like that's all a stack. And your first two are aspects, your third is an aspect, but the first two are what you sort of use to like bootstrap yourself to like, self-preservation, social. It's like I want to maintain the social ties, and be the archetype attached to that. The self-preservation, social is the farmer. You want to work the land, commune with other farmers, and do that. Self-preservation, sexual, on the other hand, is like the social element is sort of foregone or explicitly foregone because that is an example of a contraflow. Contraflow, it's not going to easily flow into. If you want to think of an example, Prince was not like a very talky, showy person, where it's like there are thousands upon thousands of self-preservation social people. Yep.
Look, what's desperately needed here is for you to limit the scope of things that are explained by cognitive functions, things that are explained by enneagram number or tri-type, and things that are explained by instinctual variance, because you've got a whole slew of random examples and so forth to provide me, but there's not any clarity as to where or if that would interfere with other explanations or which explanation should be predominant regarding which matters.
Okay. So I'm trying to define what they are first, and like I'm trying, I'll take a second to like really try to concretely describe it, but it's like self-preservation, like what values and morals do you have to like, or attitudes towards other people do you have to instinctively focus on to survive or like better yourself? No, it's not.
Okay, let me approach this question from a different angle. If you were to test me for SPSOSX,
Okay,
how would you do that?
okay. So the sexual aspect that I think you're blind to is it's like, yeah, you can talk about your emotions and your feelings, but like the sort of bleeding edge, dagger link in the soul gut. Like the thing about the sexuals, is like sexuals are very, very transparent about their passion in like a very flowy way. Like it's
Okay,
very,
you're not answering my question. How would you test that? What questions would you
well,
ask?
I'm trying to tell you. I'm trying to tell you.
No, you're not. You're not telling me the answer to that question.
I'm trying to tell you about you. I'm trying to tell you.
But I'm not interested in me. I want to know how one would test
Okay.
and have some sort of clarity about whether it's correct or not, your instinctual variant.
Okay. So it's like if you don't have the sexual aspect, then just the sort of heartfelt clinging towards either other people or just like passions is different. Like they like sexual people like really get enraptured and focused on their passions in like a really overt way, and like their how they feel about those things and just themselves, like because the sexual aspect, which is like intense emotional experiences and just like opening and bonding self to other. So like if I'm a
Okay,
sexual person,
I'm trying to write down the answer to your test question, and I can't figure out what your test question is.
I'm trying to tell you. I've been trying to tell you, man.
I mean, have you ever encountered a test question that was as long and multifaceted and not a question as what all the stuff you just said?
Man, I'm trying to tell you, like this is really the best way I know how, you know what I'm saying?
But I'm asking a specific question. I'm saying, if you were to test, give a test that somebody else could use to apply, that is a specific test, not a general check against this description, but a specific test. Can you say what that would look like?
It feels like the general description would be able to provide something to test for. I'm trying to say.
Okay,
I'm
so
trying
what
to tell
is
you.
that thing then?
I'm trying to tell you.
But just you don't need to try to just tell me what that thing is.
That's what I like, man. That's what I've been doing. If you want to put it like that, like
No, you've been
I,
giving me the general description, and then you just said now the general description will
that's
provide
it.
the
I
thing
think
the thing to test for, the mechanism. So what is that mechanism? What is the thing to test for?
I mean, I'm trying to describe the parts to you, and it's like I'm trying to describe all that shit to you, and I keep being cut off.
I mean, listen. I mean, how much? If I ask you, hey, did you go to Ralph's on Wednesday? How much non-answer should I listen to before I repeat the question?
It feels like I've been giving you the answer. It's just not
You
as
haven't.
concise as
You've
you'd
been
like.
describing what somebody with that would look like in a lot of ways that don't allow you to meaningfully test somebody against that because they're vague standards. They're not operationalized at all. So, what
I
does it
guess like
mean
a
to
method.
be?
Okay.
What does it mean to be like Bear Grylls? What does that mean exactly?
Okay. So it feels like I've been giving you the mechanism to know how to find it. You want something else with me, and like I'm unable to provide it. So we're at an impasse.
Well, I'm just okay.
I
So
can use
then, what I'm saying then
right.
is, it's we started this conversation with you saying it's really important to make sure you include all the enneagram stuff, and I'm trying to figure out if you're onto some sort of clarity about enneagram that would allow us to afford more jurisdiction to it than I normally do, and the answer is, well, no, because the capacity to afford jurisdiction follows from the capacity to universalize tests and stuff, you know?
I mean, I'm trying to like really give you the best footnotes in my mind, you know, towards that. But again, if you're not satisfied with that, then I
I
can't
mean, I'm
say
just
more. I
asking you
would like to
why
keep talking about
I've heard multiple interpretations. I'm asking you why I should prefer the one you're saying over a different one.
I guess it seems to make sense and be, I guess, like verifiable to a description. You know what I'm saying? Like it seems to make sense across like a big board, you know, like of people I've seen, a description, you know, and through that, I'm trying to give you the things you can test for. I have
Okay,
not
but
converted to that thing. That's my easy method.
okay, but the thing is, it's like there's an explanation that I use on it is very simple. It doesn't cover a lot of things. It's just that either you see yourself as a independent agent, even if you're part of a couple, you kind of keep separate bank accounts, stuff like that, you know, or you see yourself fundamentally as part of a couple. You don't really feel settled into life until you're settled into a long-term relationship, or you see yourself and your partner as part of a larger family group or larger social group or something like that, and it's important for you to make appearances and blah 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 blah. Now that would seem to be give you kind of a direct criterion, which is to say, you're going to evaluate how the person views themselves in terms of a relationship with a significant other, and whether or not they stress that they're still independent agents despite being a couple, or they stress they're a two-person team no matter what, or whether they stress that they're killing it as a two-person team as part of this larger team. That's basically the criterion that you would test. So it's even if that's too simple, at least it's clear, right?
Okay.
Okay, so earlier you said that you would like me to try to determine your type. Now you've indicated that you are INTP, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So can I ask you how you determine that type?
I guess it's like I relate to TINE, and I one thing I've started to like realize about myself is like I used to be very TI like heavy. Like I'd have these debates with like my ESTP friend, and like it'd be super TI heavy. But then it's he because we spend so much time I think around like an INTJ and an ENTP, and I think like you start to like learn to appreciate the functions that someone else brings out through their native functioning through yourself. And I think I do a lot of NE and I shit.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if Judy, if I can't go to Nevada without
Right.
an escort because of trouble with the state of Nevada, okay, and I can't find anybody to legally escort me to Nevada unless Judy is willing to, and I end up going to Nevada, what can we conclude?
That you had Judy or some equivalent of Judy.
Okay. Um, when umbrellas only stop rain,
Uh,
when the rain is water, and it's Disco Tuesday, and thus raining men, what can we conclude?
that it's raining and it's Disco Tuesday. I guess it's like you only establish like what it meant for it to be raining. I guess like the fact that it's Disco Tuesday. Yep.
When umbrellas only stop rain when rain is water, and it's Disco Tuesday, and therefore raining men, what can we conclude?
I guess again that it's just like raining, but it's like what does Disco Tuesday have to do with it? It's raining and it's Disco Tuesday. That's like
Well,
it.
what we
I
can
guess.
why can't we conclude that the umbrella doesn't stop the rain?
I mean, it's still raining even though there's an umbrella, right?
Right, but I started with when umbrellas only stop the rain when it's raining water.
Yeah.
Right? So if umbrellas only stop rain when it's raining water and it's not raining water, then they don't stop rain, right? Okay.
I would sort of think that it becomes a semantical thing because like I just think of like an umbrella.
I mean, it's
You
it's
think,
a
yeah.
it's a verbal
Right.
reasoning thing, not semantics. But okay, so who's my mother's husband's wife in relation to me?
Your mother's husband. Um, your mother's husband's what?
Wife.
Um, repeat it one more time.
Who's my mother's husband's wife in relation to me?
Mother's. Cool. Uh,
Have you ever watched a typing session with an INTP before that I've done?
no, I haven't.
Okay, you're definitely not an INTP. There's zero chance of it.
Oh, what do you think I am?
I don't know, but there's zero chance you're an INTP because the TI tests are definitive in that area. So it's like INTPs are consistently very good, very fast, and always right about the TI questions. In fact, they'll usually catch little errors that I might have made and explain why they're little errors.
Oh. Okay.
So I'm not sure what type you are, but you seem like an extrovert, not an introvert. I mean, every time I've spoken with you, you seemed like an extrovert. And second of all, if you were, if you're an, it would seem like you're an action type because you
Oh my God, no. Oh God, no.
remembering that speaking is a form of action.
Oh, because I'm speaking?
Yeah, they're the NE-DOMs and SE-DOMs are both action types. So in other words, you're taking a lot of action here in this conversation when we were talking about enneagram, and you were giving me much more extensive explanations, right, than I was asking for or looking for even. So that would suggest that you like to take action on that in that frame, which is to say talking and explaining things and stuff like that, right? So now that's not necessarily proof that you're an action type, but I'm just telling you what we can eliminate is TI1, TI2, almost certainly not TI3 even, but possible. But 4, 7, 8, one of those three probably.
Okay. What if I told you that I think you were totally off base?
What if you
And I can tell you why.
if you told me I was a what?
Totally off base with that.
I mean, the thing is, you don't perform well on verbal reasoning tests.
Wait, do you? Okay, the thing is, I am very, very high.
But it doesn't matter though.
Yeah. Do you want to ask me one more for the road?
Sure. If only people from Iceland enjoy cashmere sweaters, and I don't enjoy cashmere sweaters, can we conclude that I'm not from Iceland?
No.
Correct.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, have you ever heard the hats question?
No.
So there's a warden of jail. He's got a bag with 5 hats in it. There are 3 red hats and 2 white hats. Okay. And he brings out 3 prisoners from their cells and he blindfolds them all. And he has each of them pick a hat randomly from this bag and put it on their head. It's a little party hat. And then he explains the game to these prisoners. He says, I'm going to take off your blindfolds one at a time. If after I take off your blindfold, you look at the other guy's hats and you can tell me what color your own hat is, then I will let you go free. However, if you guess wrong, I will kill you immediately. Or you can choose not to answer and I will things go back to the way they've always been. You just serve out your turn, okay? So each of them has pulled a hat randomly from this bag of 3 red hats and 2 white hats, okay? And now they take the blindfold off the first guy, and he looks at the second and third guy's hats, and he says, I cannot tell you what color my hat is. The warden says, fine. He takes off the blindfold from the second guy. The second guy looks at the other 2 guys' hats. He says, I cannot tell you what color my hat is. And then the warden goes to take off the third blindfold. The guy says, you don't need to take it off. I know what color my hat is. And he tells him, and the warden lets him go. What color was his hat, and how did he know?
What color was the guy's hat?
Yeah, what color was the third guy's hat, and how did he know?
Red, because the other 2 were white.
Why do you think the other 2 were white?
Was it like 3 red hats and 2 white hats?
There's 3 red hats and 2 white hats in a bag of 5 hats. Each of the 3 people pulled 1 hat randomly from the bag.
Okay, because he looked at both of them, and both of them had white hats. Like that was all it was. So 5 hats.
Who looked at both of them and saw they had white hats?
Was it the guy?
Okay, so there's guy 1, guy 2, and guy 3. Guy 3 is the only one who knows the answer, and he tells the warden and gets set free. The question is, what color was guy 3's hat, and how did he know?
It was red because the other 2 were white. There were 2 white hats, if like the hats are extinguished from like the pool, when they come out of the hats, so 2 white hats gets him out of the pool, and he's left with 3 red.
But how do you know if anybody pulled a white hat? They could have each pulled a red hat, right?
Well, if he specifically knows that it's like white hats, and like he sees them with white hats, then they're out. Whatever, like they're not. It wouldn't specify.
It's true that if the third guy sees 2 white hats on the other 2 guys' heads, it's true that he would have a red hat, and that would be the correct answer. But why did you conclude he saw 2 white hats on the other guys' heads?
I guess that's like the simplest explanation.
Okay, so the answer is yes, he did have a red hat. You were right about that. But the answer is, if the first guy had seen 2 white hats, he would have known his own hat was red. So he must not have seen 2 white hats. The second guy knows that the first guy had seen 2 white hats, then he would have known. So he must not have seen 2 white hats. So the second guy knows if he sees the third guy has a white hat, then he will be able to determine that his own hat is red. He's not able to determine that, so he must not have seen a white hat, which means the third guy knows his own hat is red. However, there's nothing in this problem that indicates to you any information from which you can deduce what color the other 2 guys' hats were.
I guess I really didn't listen to the problem. Whatever, I just heard the one part.
Okay, all right, cool. So, yeah, I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, and a lot of people have themselves mistyped, and especially people who've got either instrumental NI /TI kind of stuff will misunderstand the nature of logical reasoning and stuff and misperceive themselves, because you might be a logical person, but TI links more directly to verbal reasoning kind of skills like that, and parsing and black and white thinking. There's a lot of people who are kind of counter-value of TI will refer to it. So, or they'll call it semantics. It's like when it's not semantics, though, it's validity. So, yeah, that's the good news is you are not alone. There are a lot of people who mistype themselves, and I understand that it's kind of a big thing, which is to say, I've had people come to me very distressed because they've been mistyped by somebody else, and they can't settle in to dealing with their relationship with MBTI in general until they get clarity on their type. So the other thing is, if you think you have clarity and somebody comes and tries and disrupts that clarity, then that can be quite it can be almost traumatic, frankly. So I don't mean to take lightly this announcement that you're not an INTP, but just remember it's not your fault to mistype yourself, because there's so many incredibly shitty tests out there and people who don't know what they're talking about at all and don't have clear skills test links like this that can be definitive. So it's not your fault. You're not alone, and you're not an INTP.
Okay.